I found out my son is dating his friend, and now I just want to support them both and make sure they feel loved. My son is 20 years old now, and he's truly my pride and joy. There's absolutely nothing he could ever do that would make me love him less. But to be completely honest, I haven't always been the father he deserved. When my son was just a baby, his mother and I went our separate ways. At the time, I was in no position to be a parent. I was struggling with a heroin addiction that completely consumed my life. It was a dark period, and I can say with full honesty that I was not a good man then. I wasn't someone anyone could depend on, let alone a helpless child. For the first 12 years of his life, my involvement in his life was sporadic at best. I'd see him maybe 2 or 3 times a year. I missed so many milestones, so many moments that I can never get back. Birthdays, school events, firsts of all kinds. I wasn't there. And that's something that will always haunt me. It's one of the deepest regrets of my life that I let my addiction steal those precious years from both of us. But as much as I failed him during those early years, my love for him never wavered. Even at my lowest, I always wanted to do right by him. I just didn't know how. And it wasn't until he was 12 that I realized I had to make a change. At that time, he confided in me about things that were happening at home with his mother and her boyfriend. I won't go into the details, that's his story to tell, not mine. But suffice it to say, he was being mistreated in ways no child should ever have to endure. Despite all the ways I'd failed him up to that point, I knew I couldn't fail him again. He needed someone to step up for him, and I made the decision right then and there that I was going to be that person. I worked hard to get clean and stay clean, and I fought for full custody of him. It wasn't an easy road by any means, but every step of the way, I was fueled by my love for him and the knowledge that he deserved so much better than what life had given him up to that point. Since then, it's been just the two of us. I've been his sole parent for the past 8 years, and I've done everything I can to make up for the time we lost. It hasn't always been perfect, but I think we've built something really special together. He's grown into an incredible young man, and I couldn't be prouder of the person he's become. Every day, I feel lucky that I get to be his dad. Watching him grow and thrive has been the greatest privilege of my life. It's hard to believe sometimes that this sunny, kind, resilient young man came from the same rough beginnings as me. Somehow, against all odds, he's turned out to be one of the best people I've ever known. And I'll never stop being grateful for the chance to be a part of his life. Fast forward to today, and my son is thriving in ways I could only have dreamed of back when I first got custody of him. When he was 18, he achieved something incredible. He got accepted into one of the top universities in the country. Not just any school, but his first choice, the one he'd been aiming for throughout high school. To say I was proud would be the understatement of the century. I'll admit, watching him pack his things and move across the country to start this new chapter was bittersweet. On one hand, I was overjoyed to see him reaching for his dreams and starting this amazing adventure. But on the other hand, the house felt awfully empty without him. After years of it being just the two of us, I had to adjust to not seeing him every day. Despite the distance, we've managed to stay incredibly close. He comes home every other month, and on the months he doesn't, I make it a point to visit him at school. We've struck a good balance, and seeing him so happy and independent has made it all worthwhile. From everything he's told me, he's thriving at university. He's excelling in his studies, which I know isn't easy at such a competitive school. He's also built a solid group of friends, which makes me even happier, knowing how much he values the relationships in his life. Starting in his second year, he moved off campus into a flat with a friend of his. While my son hasn't explicitly shared many details about their relationship, I've had a feeling since his early teens that he might be gay. It's never been something I've pushed him to confirm or discuss. I've always wanted him to feel free to come to me when he's ready. Regardless, I've always tried to make it clear to him that my love is unconditional and nothing about who he loves would ever change that. Now, with his flatmate, who I suspect is more than just a friend, it's clear that he's created a life for himself that brings him joy. He seems comfortable, supported, and confident in who he's becoming. That's all I've ever wanted for him. When the pandemic started, he decided to come back home to quarantine with me, which was honestly the best news I could have hoped for during such a chaotic time. Of course, he didn't want to leave his friend behind, as his flatmate is an international student from Canada with little family support back home. Naturally, I welcomed them both with open arms. Having the two of them here has been wonderful. Seeing my son back home, happy and full of life, reminds me just how far we've come. However, my son also had a request. His flatmate, his friend, is an international student from Canada. From what I understand, his family is far away and their relationship isn't exactly close or supportive. If my son came home, his flatmate would be left alone, potentially for months on end. My son asked if it would be okay for his friend to stay with us during quarantine, and of course, my answer was an immediate yes. If this person was important enough for my son to bring into our home, then they were welcome here, no questions asked. They've now been staying with me for about 6 weeks, and I have to say, it's been an adjustment, but a good one. Having 2 young adults in the house has brought a lot of energy and life into my home, and it's been great to spend this extended time with my son. That said, it's become increasingly clear to me that my son and his friend are more than just flatmates. I don't think they realize how much I've noticed, but there have been plenty of little moments that give it away. For instance, I've overheard his friend slip up a few times, calling my son babe or sweetie when they think I'm not paying attention. They sit a little closer than most friends do when we watch movies together, and I've caught glimpses of my son putting his arm around him during those moments when they think I'm not looking. There have been other, smaller signs too, like the way they'll suddenly go quiet or act a little awkward when I walk into the room, as if they're trying to hide something. One time, I even walked in and could tell they'd just been kissing, though they quickly tried to play it off. The moment that really solidified my suspicions, though, happened earlier this week. I have a habit of getting up very early to go for a run, and one morning, I decided to peek into my son's room to check on him, just like I used to when he was younger. To my surprise, I found them both asleep in my son's bed, snuggled up together. I didn't say anything. I just quietly closed the door and went on my way, but it confirmed what I'd already suspected. They're a couple. Since then, I've been thinking a lot about how to approach this situation. It's clear to me that they're trying to keep their relationship under wraps, at least while they're in my home, and that breaks my heart a little. My home is the last place I'd ever want my son to feel like he needs to hide who he is. Having them both here has only made me more certain of how much I care about him and his happiness, and I want them both to feel completely welcome and supported while they're staying with me. Here's where I'm struggling and why I'm reaching out for advice. It's abundantly clear to me that my son and his friend are in a relationship. While they haven't openly told me, their actions have made it more than obvious. And honestly, I couldn't be happier for them. I've always wanted my son to find someone who makes him happy, someone who truly cares for him. And from what I can see, his boyfriend seems to do just that. They're sweet together, and it's obvious how much they care for one another. But what's been weighing on me is the fact that they feel the need to hide their relationship while they're in my home. I know they think they're being subtle, but the little moments I've noticed, the quiet terms of endearment, the hand-holding in the dark, the way they quickly change their behavior when I walk into a room, tell me that they're trying to keep their relationship under wraps. I don't want them to feel that way. This is my son's home, and by extension, it's his boyfriend's home for as long as he's staying here. I want them to feel completely comfortable, to know that they don't have to sneak around or hide their love from me. I've tried to create an environment of unconditional love and acceptance ever since I became my son's full-time parent, and the thought that they might feel like they need to stay in the closet under my roof is upsetting. At the same time, I understand that coming out is a deeply personal decision. I don't want to push my son or his boyfriend into a conversation they're not ready to have. I know how important it is for people to share that part of themselves on their own terms, in their own time. The last thing I want to do is overstep and make them feel pressured or uncomfortable. So, I'm at a bit of a crossroads. Do I let them know that I've figured it out and that I'm completely okay with their relationship? Or do I stay quiet, wait for them to come to me when they're ready, and let them set the pace? I'm trying to balance my desire to reassure them with my respect for their privacy and autonomy. More than anything, I just want them both to feel safe, supported, and loved while they're here. I don't want them to feel like they have to tiptoe around me or pretend to be something they're not, but I also don't want to handle this in a way that would cause them any discomfort or anxiety. At the end of the day, my son's happiness is all that matters to me. And if his boyfriend makes him happy, then that's all I need to know. I just want to make sure they know that, too. Update to the story. After spending much of the day mulling over how best to approach the conversation, I finally decided to wait until after dinner. My son had been busy with assignments for his freelancing work and university, and I didn't want to interrupt him while he was focused. Once the evening wound down and the three of us had finished eating, his boyfriend excused himself to take a bath. That left just my son and me sitting together in the living room, with the TV playing quietly in the background. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I knew I didn't want to overwhelm him or make him feel like he was being interrogated. So, I started with the most important thing, my love for him. I turned to him, looked him in the eye, and said as calmly and warmly as I could, "Son, I love you very much. You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to share, but I want you and friend to feel comfortable being yourselves in my house. You don't ever need to hide anything from me, all right?" For a split second, I wasn't sure how he would respond. But then, to my relief and slight amusement, he burst out laughing. It wasn't the reaction I expected, but it immediately put me at ease. His laughter wasn't nervous or forced. It was the kind of genuine, almost cathartic laughter that only comes from relief. As soon as he calmed down, he admitted that he'd suspected I'd figured things out but hadn't brought it up because he didn't want to make me uncomfortable. He said something along the lines of, "I was pretty sure you knew, but I didn't want to risk making it awkward for you." Hearing that made me chuckle, too. Both of us had been dancing around the same topic, not wanting to upset or embarrass the other. It was a classic case of mutual overthinking, and we laughed about how ridiculous we'd been. What followed was a beautiful, honest conversation. My son shared a bit more about their relationship and how it had grown over time. He talked about how happy he is with his boyfriend and how much they've supported each other throughout university. He even joked about how they tried to keep things low-key around me, though it was clear they hadn't been as discreet as they thought. By the time his boyfriend came back from his bath, we were both relaxed and smiling. My son went to talk to him privately for a moment, likely to explain what had just happened. When they returned, the atmosphere was light and comfortable, as though a weight had been lifted. We spent the rest of the evening chatting openly, sharing stories, and just enjoying each other's company. It felt like the start of a new chapter, one where there were no more secrets or tiptoeing around each other. As our conversation deepened, we touched on the subject of my son's boyfriend and his background. While I'd known from my son that his boyfriend didn't have a great relationship with his family, I hadn't been fully aware of the extent of the situation. Sadly, he confirmed what many of you had suspected. His family effectively disowned him after he came out to them a few years ago. Hearing that broke my heart. No child should ever feel abandoned or unloved, especially for something as fundamental as who they are. It's hard to imagine how anyone could turn their back on someone as kind, thoughtful, and caring as this young man. From everything I've observed in the time they've been staying with me, he's an incredible person, polite, intelligent, and endlessly supportive of my son. Learning that he'd been rejected by the very people who should have loved him unconditionally only made me want to step in and make sure he knows he's valued. During our conversation, I made it absolutely clear to him that he's a part of our family now. I told him that this house is his home for as long as he needs it and that he's welcome here, always. I could see the emotion in his face when I said it. He didn't say much in response, but the gratitude and relief were evident in his expression. We also talked a little about how difficult it's been for him to navigate life without the support of his parents. My son shared how much they've leaned on each other over the years, especially during moments when his boyfriend felt particularly alone. It was clear that their relationship isn't just about romance. It's also a source of strength and stability for both of them. Knowing what he's been through only makes me more determined to show him the love and acceptance he deserves. He's a wonderful young man, and he makes my son incredibly happy. As far as I'm concerned, that's all that matters. From now on, I want him to feel like he has a family here, a place where he's safe, supported, and cared for. No one should have to face life feeling like they don't belong, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure he knows he does. Reflecting on everything that's happened, I can't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. What started as a quiet worry about how to approach the topic with my son has turned into one of the most meaningful conversations we've ever had. It's brought us even closer, and it's reminded me of just how lucky I am to have him in my life. I'm so proud of the man he's become, kind, compassionate, and brave in ways that continue to inspire me. Seeing him so happy and secure in his relationship only reaffirms what I've always hoped for him, that he finds love, joy, and someone who truly values him. His boyfriend, despite the hardships he's faced, is a remarkable person in his own right, and I'm grateful to have him as part of our family now. For anyone out there who might be going through something similar, I hope this story reminds you that love and acceptance can make all the difference. And to anyone who's ever felt like they don't belong, Please know that there are people who will see you, value you, and welcome you with open arms. As for me, I'm looking forward to the future. I'm excited to see where life takes my son and his boyfriend, and I'll be cheering them on every step of the way. No matter what happens, they'll always have a home and a family here.